I was thinking the whole time, how do you get the secret handshake to give to the guy so he shows you the king cobra he has for sale? Because I know he has one. It's just a matter of him showing it to me and telling me what the price is. And there's your opener. There's
great.
your opener. The secret handshake for the king cobra.
Okay, I like that. That we can throw that in. We're ridiculous.
I respect your distance. Wow. How neat is that? That's pretty neat.
You found organs. You found pieces of Dominic Reyes for sale.
That's pretty neat.
And as someone who has been on the ground,
that's pretty neat.
Very big man. It's
not giving up yet.
Terrifying.
That's pretty neat.
Can 3 John Dodsons beat Francis Ngannou?
Gee dang it. How neat is that? That's pretty neat.
I love the ads. I love the ads on websites. It's like celebs who died from COVID-19. It's a picture of Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's like, nah, he's definitely still alive. But I'm also going to click on that.
Do you want to say, hey, welcome, people? How do you feel about this morning? You know, the thing about the Pretty Neat podcast is we're new. There's a lot of MMA podcasts out there. And
that's right.
I'm going to admit a mistake to you, but I feel it's important to address it. You know,
okay.
When I think about all the MMA podcasts out there, there's a lot of junk. There's a lot of junk, and
yeah, this included, frankly.
See, and that's the opinion I had. But here's my problem. I went on and I said, hey, throw in this one on the pile for everyone in the MMA community on Reddit, and it didn't get 1,000 downvotes or anything. You don't have to raise your eyebrows and be like, what the hell is wrong with you? But as the MMA community does, I got really good feedback on that. And somebody was like, you know, is this your podcast? And I was like, yeah, it's my podcast. And they're like, own it, man. And that's 100% true, because our podcast isn't garbage, because our conversations are totally fun. And
so what did they say?
So that was just one, but the one that was good, and it was great because the dude's name was like Suicide by Words or something. It was fantastic.
Okay.
And being a writer myself and not thinking of it that way and not really putting myself in the perspective of a reader, you know, of that, hey, here's another hunk of shit for the pile, you know. And he was just like, you know, if you're presenting it as garbage, like what the hell are we listening to? And you know, what's your podcast versus all of the others? And you know, are you experts? Is there inside scoop? You know, are you funny? Like what sells your podcast? And and I was like, this is like comment number 2. And I'm just like, okay, MMA is the neatest thing around, because these are the people that we are around. And I loved that. And then of course they said, and this was and I took this politely. I'm not a troll comment reader. It said like, serious advice, you should delete this and just delete this one, put up something else, I would suppose. And I did. So I did follow that advice, and I responded to each person that I could to make sure.
They're saying, I want to clarify, they're saying delete the podcast episode or delete the comment.
Delete
okay, I mean, either one Reddit, is totally legitimate, but okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, absolutely. And I responded because I wanted to. And you know, we have several subscribers at this point. We put up one episode and people we know subscribed, but a few of the people who commented said, I want to listen to a few episodes and check you guys out. See if you are pretty neat. So I want to say to those folks, hey, thank you for listening to a second episode. If you listened through the first, welcome.
That's right. We think you're pretty neat.
We absolutely think you're pretty neat. We totally respect your distance, by the way.
Absolutely.
But it made me philosophize on our podcast, and really just to kind of sum it up, you know, we mentioned it briefly back then, but our podcast, you know, we're regular people, just like any other listener might be there. And we're friends that go way back. And, you know, I moved across the country, and reconnecting so we can talk MMA is how we maintain friendship. And MMA makes friends. It brings people together. And, since moving here, you know, I haven't really socialized that much. I changed jobs and changed circles and didn't really make new friends, and didn't have a circle of MMA people to listen to rant about at the bar, you know. And that was my favorite thing, was going and listening to you ramble on with people. and listen to other people try and talk game with you. And like, you could have the dumbest opinion about something, or I could, and won't back down. And it's the funnest part about hanging out with us. So I really feel like our podcast is hanging out with MMA friends, and that's it.
That's right.
And we're pretty fun, and we have silly opinions, and we're gonna play some dumb games and have some friends on, and it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be pretty neat.
You know what? We're gonna try to be pretty neat, and we're also going to we're gonna do what we enjoy. And if people like it, that's awesome. And if they don't, that's fine too. There are literally a million shitty podcasts you could listen to. I subscribe to some myself.
Yep, me too. Have you?
But hey,
yeah.
If you are from the Reddit thread, which I didn't even know about until right now, so that's awesome, and you are listening, we think you're pretty neat.
Yeah. And it's just a nice little engagement, maybe like probably 6 or 7 people. It's a pretty short period of time, but it's one of those enlightening periods of time. And it's an empowering crowd. And they're just like, if it's good, say it's good. And it's good. You would never
start a fight in a UFC match, or well, you wouldn't, of course, because they wouldn't give you a microphone. But they, John Anik's not going to say, well, this one's not going to be too exciting, but buckle up. Right? Could you imagine?
Yeah.
He's like, hey, it's Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis 1. This isn't going to be exciting. Actually, they're just going to kind of stand there and circle each other for 15 minutes.
Yeah. And the funny thing is like, I said it, and that's the key thing, is I said it playfully. Another MMA podcast by a couple of friends or something for the pile, and I didn't even consider how trashy it sounded. So I'm sorry that I made us sound trashy when we're not. And
no, I love it.
Thankfully, it's removed, but I saved a screenshot as proof for later to extort ourselves.
So that's fair. If you were listening from Reddit or from anywhere, welcome. We're happy to have you. And what did you do this weekend? We record on Monday nights. What did you do this weekend? Tell me.
So much yard work. And we had storms. I'm in Texas, so we get the mishmash of everything. And I watched fights. I woke up with a hangover from just and it wasn't spike drinking. It was long-term drinking, because I started with PFL on Thursday. And I was just watching fights all the way through the weekend, just steady drinking. And that's all I did. I watched fights and I did yard work, man. So my body's exhausted. How about you?
Well, the in-laws were in town, and what was positioned and sold to me as, and I quote, California's largest open-air farmers market, turned out to be California's, I suppose, largest open air semi-black market.
Okay.
So here's what I mean.
Please explain.
Here's what I mean.
You found organs? You found pieces of Dominic Reyes for sale?
No pieces of Dominic Reyes. So this is before his jaw got removed.
Okay.
We pull up to this. I'm not gonna say where this was, Chino, to protect the privacy of the individuals who run these air quotes businesses. So we pull up into this again. It's been told to me that we are going to a farmer's market, and as we are driving to our parking spot, I see, and I can't exaggerate this. I'm not exaggerating this. I can't stress this enough. I see what is only described as a massive amount of birds in a cage on the other side of a fence.
Okay. So wait, and this is a farmer's market, and you're in a parking lot, and is the farmer's market also in a parking lot? Because that's what I picture.
It's a market. We're going to have to now remove the term farmers.
Okay.
Unless what you farm is a series of what birds. I now know to be illegal birds that you are not allowed to sell.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we walk, it's 50 cents to enter this market. And they make you put a mask on. And now I can see into the market, and I'm thinking the mask is not going to keep anyone safe here at all. This is insane.
This sounds like
The
where
first
viruses are
thing-
made.
That's correct. The first thing you see to the left is just the biggest cage full of birds of all sorts, ducks, pigeons, little tiny finch, parakeet type of deal birds, all the way up to very, very large macaws, you know, the big red and blue ones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, behind them, that's where they kept the reptiles. There were several pythons. There were 14 turtles in one 10-gallon tank, all kind of stacked on top of each other. There were no less than 19 iguanas.
This isn't
in
Florida.
one-
This isn't
No,
Florida.
this is not Florida.
Okay,
there
game
were
bread's not
nine-
bumping into you.
There were
Oh
19
my God.
iguanas. Next to
19
that, there were probably 15 chameleons.
Holy shit.
Yeah, one stall had toucans for sale.
Okay.
Toucans. They also had 2 African gray parrots. One appeared to have been mauled by another one, and the other one was in very good shape. It was truly astounding. And then if you walked a little further down the row of merchants and took a right, what was for sale there, you ask? Well, that would be a pile of rusty tools. So
Where is
yeah,
okay.
for
Okay.
all of our listeners who don't live in areas where garage sales are common, in certain parts of Southern California, people take their shit that they don't want and put it on their driveway, and other people pull up and buy it because this is America. And now I know where all that stuff goes. They have birds and the
Oh.
shit that was purchased at garage sales. It
Okay.
was wild. And
Well-
I did not like it, and I didn't feel clean.
Props to you. I can tell by listening that there are no exotic, illegally owned birds in your home. I'm presuming that means you went with a reptile.
I was thinking the whole time, how do you get the secret handshake to give to the guy so he shows you the king cobra he has for sale? Because I know he has one. It's just a matter of him showing it to me and telling me what the price is. And there's
I
your
love-
opener.
That's
There's
great.
your opener. The secret
Okay.
handshake for the king cobra.
Okay, I like that. That we can throw that in. We're ridiculous.
All right.
Uh,
Tell me about the handicapper super duper fight.
okay, this is an appropriate thing. The results happened. Every podcast is going to cover the results, and we're going to talk about results. But Yuri Prochazka, which I think I said
Yes.
I think I said Prochazka last episode. I have a friend named Prochazka. Yes, that's an excuse, but every fighter makes
How do
one.
you say it? Prochazka?
Prochazka?
Prochazka. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm thinking the Polish thing, and he's not Polish, so that's my problem. Anyway, I have a game for you called Aaron's Handicapper Super Duper Fight. Yuri Prochazka is a nightmare of a man.
Yes, he is.
I believe that you could beat him.
Let's not pretend there's a planet or a realm of reality where I could beat him in a fight.
Well, this is where we're gonna do some super duper handicapping. So,
Okay, I see where this is going.
Dominic, you're
Yeah.
gonna experience 5 rounds with Yuri Prochazka.
Okay.
And in the first round, it's you and Yuri. That's it. You're just going to tell me how that round goes down. And we might know that's pretty simple. That might be easy.
Okay.
Now, each round or so, you're not going to like be left off where you were. You're just going to come back. It's going to be another fight. And I'm going to
Okay.
apply a super duper handicapper. It could be something simple. He sprained his ankle. It could
Okay.
be something more complex, like he's Daniel Cormier poked him in the eye. Or he just went 5 rounds with Ngannou, and and something like that.
Okay.
So, and we're just going to apply them, and they could be silly. They might not be. Now, you do have the option, and basically we're going to do this until you finally pick a round that you think you can actually beat him. So it's just going to get more and more handicapped. Okay?
And this is specifically me?
Specifically you this time. It could be me next
Okay.
time. I also
All
think
right.
that this would be super fun just to apply with other fighters, just because I think it'd be silly. But I think it might be fun to see what it might take to get to the level. Now you also have the option in round number 3 of accepting an advantage instead of issuing a disadvantage.
All right.
And I will give you an advantage.
Okay.
So you're gonna fight Jiri. This is gonna be a nightmare because he is scary as shit. I mean,
Yep.
First of all, and I mean, we're gonna be able to talk about him during this, of course. Because I mean, round 1, Dominic, I see that bell ringing and I see problems for you.
That's correct.
I have not seen somebody throw from those kinds of angles. I mean, he reminds me of Michel Pereira. I don't know how to say that particular last name in Brazilian
Peoria.
Portuguese. Yeah. And that was frightening. So I think that might be pretty quick. I think that it might look like something like an octopus attacking you.
I can tell you how this first round goes.
Okay.
We touch gloves,
Okay.
the bell rings,
Okay.
and then the round is over and the fight is over.
Okay. That's kind of what I expect for round 1. Round 2, your first handicapper.
All right.
You're fighting Jiri Prochazka. However, he can no longer strike with you.
Okay.
How's round 2?
So the bell rings, we touch gloves, and the fight is over. For perspective, Jiri Prochazka,
how many wins by submission does he have?
Has you didn't tell me I don't know how many he has by submission. He has KO, 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 TKO, 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 KO, TKO, TKO decision. KO, KO. That was a loss. Sorry. TKO, KO, KO, TKO, TKO, draw. TKO, TKO. He submitted via rear naked choke Jan Vabornik in March of 2014 at GCF 27. Then KO, TKO submission. They don't even. Oh no, he lost via submission. KO, TKO, TKO loss there. Submission, triangle choke at RFN against Pavel Tus in 2012, and then 3 more knockouts. So he has 2 wins by submission. Do I have this right? Yeah, he has 2 wins by submission.
Okay.
Oh, you already knew, and you let me do that anyway. Thank you.
I didn't necessarily know that, and I mean that's kind of one of the things I want to play with. Is like this is also one of those things where we're taking Yuri's ground out, because I'm thinking about Jiri Prochazka fighting Jean.
Nope. You said he couldn't strike.
Can't strike, exactly. So
yeah, he submitted 2 real fighters in real professional fights, so the bell rings and the fight's over.
So no results
different.
I can do. And I'm curious to see how he does on the ground once he's really pressured there, because I've looked at some of his old stuff and the dude is insane. But I want to see how that goes.
Now, for what it's worth, and what it's worth is literally nothing. I have trained no-gi jiu-jitsu for 6 months and 1 week, and I have trained Muay Thai for about 3 months. Having said that, the bell rings and the fight's over. And that's round 2.
Yep, that's round 2.
What's the deal for round 3?
Round 3. Do you want an advantage?
You're going to have to tell me what it is, or is that part of the game?
2 coaches and a full camp. 2 coaches of your choosing.
Versus
Jiri, same night after a 5-round main event with Jan, and he lost. So I'm giving you an advantage and him a disadvantage. He's exhausted and you have a full camp, and he has no camp. He has no camp to get ready for you.
He didn't have a camp to get ready for Jan.
Fuck, that's a good point. Maybe we'll take the camp aspect out. What do you think?
So I don't get a camp either.
You get full camp. You get full camp. He gets no camp. How's that sound?
He fights Jan and loses.
Yep. So he's exhausted. He's disappointed.
Jan leaves the ring. I get in the ring.
Yep.
Okay.
And he cannot strike you.
Okay.
And you have had a full camp with 2 head coaches of your choosing. And I'm very curious what coaches you would choose.
Oh, I would have to really think about it. Who is off the top of my head Kamaru Usman's coach? Trevor
Whitman.
Trevor Whitman's probably that guy.
Yeah.
And
I think I'd go Matt Serra.
Travis Luter's another good one.
Yeah.
Or
BJJ, since you're going to be on the ground. You might not be. He would be trying to get you there.
Maybe Eddie Bravo. Okay, so I'm going to take that advantage. Are you ready?
How do you feel? How do you feel now?
Yeah. So the bell rings.
Okay.
We touch gloves. And the fight's over.
Why? Why don't you give yourself more credit?
Okay. This is absurd. This is one of my very favorite things about pro sports of all sort. There's nothing you can do. I'm not a professional athlete.
Okay. Then we're going to move straight into round 4.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Can he still not strike in round 3?
Correct.
Yeah, so the bell rings and the fight's over.
Okay.
So now we go to round 4. He can't
Your
strike.
camp doesn't... Okay, you can't strike. He is exhausted.
Yeah, he's just lost a title
fight.
I've had the full camp and 2 coaches of my choosing. We get to round 4. What's the handicap for him?
Now, his feet are cemented to the floor.
Okay. And
so literally all he can do is try to grapple you where he stands.
Okay. So if I've had a full, I'm guessing 12-week fight camp.
Effectively to fight a grappling dummy that might be able to submit you.
2 coaches of my choosing.
Mm-hmm.
He has just lost a title fight. He cannot strike, and his feet are cemented to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the 4th round starts.
Oh my God.
We touch gloves, and the fight is over.
You said before that's the thing about professional sports is there's nothing I can do to ever handicap Jiri ever.
That is correct.
Really? Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
Now, here's what I want for the 5th round.
I'm going to go ahead. Yes. Tell me what you want for the 5th round.
He has just lost a title fight. His feet are cemented to the floor. He cannot strike. I have had this full camp and coaches of my choosing. I would also like his hands to be cemented to the floor.
Okay. What state are we in to determine whether or not you can hit certain parts of his body then?
I have to still follow. Okay, so we're going to have to suspend the rule that if he's down, I can't.
Is your plan just to hop on his back and choke him then? If he's literally cemented on all 4s.
Well, so where I was going with that is he obviously would not be able to beat me because he literally can't move. But yeah. I am not certain I could finish him that way.
So we're going to say this then for the inaugural super duper handicapper fight.
That's right.
If it is the first and if it is the last, you fought Jiri Prochazka to the 5th round to a draw while he was cemented hands and feet to the floor, was not allowed to strike you. You had a full camp. He was exhausted after losing a 5-round title fight immediately prior. And you fought him to a draw.
That is correct. And it's only a draw because he literally had no way to win. Let me explain something.
Yeah, it would be. I think you're right. You are.
Yeah. And even then, I'm not certain he wouldn't figure it out. Let me explain something to you. Let's make this more realistic.
Okay.
Let's say the handicap is his feet are not cemented to the ground. I have had the full camp. He's had a full camp. He doesn't need to have a full camp. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
We both get in a cage. They lock the door. Herb Dean is there. He cannot strike. He cannot take me down. Do you know what would happen?
You'd touch gloves and the
That's
fight would
correct.
be over.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And here's why. I would swing and miss until I got so tired I fell over. And then he would theoretically lay down on top of me. And that's all he would have to do.
Okay. I was going to call you.
People don't understand this.
There's
is
a data
the thing.
5,000 joke there somewhere, I'm sure.
This is I'm all for it. This is the thing that people don't understand. It's especially true in fighting, but it's also true in every other sport. If you stood on at a plate in the batter's box of a major league stadium and Clayton Kershaw was on the mound pitching, what would happen is when he threw the ball, you would instinctively take 8 to 12 steps backwards. Okay. It's not that you would swing and miss or flail and miss.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you have never stood in that spot and seen a rock coming at you that fast. You would instinctively take 12 steps backward. That's what would happen. If you tried
you stand on the side of a freeway and let a car drive by you at 70.
Then add 20 to that.
Yes.
Or 30 to that.
And it's the size of a Civil War cannonball.
That's right.
It's terrifying.
You would instinctively back up. Now flip it. You stand on the mound. You can't get the ball to home plate, much less at that velocity with that control.
Hey, I probably could. I pitched.
You definitely could not. You could get the ball to home plate, but not in the strike zone and not fast enough to go by a bat.
Yeah, that's probably true.
No, it's not probably true. It is true. Okay.
Oh my God.
Try get in a pool and let Michael Phelps get in the next lane. What would happen is he would be minimum 3/4 of the way down the pool before you went up to take your first breath.
I agree. Well, then variation.
Not you, just anyone.
Anyone. Oh, I completely agree. Oh, I mean, me, I'm like the consistency of Jell-O. I'm buoyant. I would float to the top of the pool, and Michael could use me as a floaty if he got tired. The second
I'm buoyant.
Yeah. Hey, I'm manient, sir. The second variation of the handicapper super duper fight, which we could do another time,
sure,
is simply putting weird things together. You know, can 3 John Dodsons beat Francis Ngannou?
No.
See, I think there's a debate there, and we're gonna come back to that if we had more time tonight. So we're gonna play a version of that another time, because I think there's some debates we can have with that. Okay.
We have a mutual friend who would often ask, if you had to fight a horde of 5-year-olds, how many of them would it take to take you down?
I don't remember.
I
don't remember anybody's answers.
You don't remember?
I don't. Oh shit!
It's a lot of 5-year-olds.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. How many 5-year-olds would it take to take down Francis?
That's a different argument. It's so many 5-year-olds.
Okay, yeah, let's move past that. I want to talk about these fights this weekend. What are your thoughts? I want your thoughts first.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, we sold this card amongst others as like a UFC fans fight card, and I think it lived up to that. And I think that really what we saw was a guy in Dominic Reyes, because let's be honest, we mostly care about the main event, although I want to talk about Cub Swanson. I think mostly what we saw is a guy in the main event who was kind of a journeyman, I think is safe to say. Not that there's anything wrong with being a UFC journeyman. You still have to be a hell of a fighter. But
Dominic?
Yeah.
Okay. Seems though his only losses are title fights except for this one. Is that journeyman? Would you consider that journeyman? Define journeyman.
Yeah, I would.
I don't know.
Journeyman is kind of a guy who's around. But in 5 years after John Jones's retirement, 10 years, 15 years after John Jones's retirement, we're still going to be talking about him. Yeah. We talk about Chuck Liddell. We talk about Tito Ortiz. We talk about GSP. We talk about Gracie. We talk about some of these guys. There are a lot of the Dominic Reyeses on a lot of guys' resumes. If that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, that does make sense.
Nothing wrong with it. He's a hell of a fighter. He's from not far from where I am right now.
Yeah.
We have the same name, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is he had the fight with John Jones. Some people incorrectly thought that he won that fight. And
like
so
me.
Okay.
Another
time. What we might have to do. I was gonna say what we might have to do is like a vault fight companion where we watch that and really try to break it down like two idiots.
Cool. If you really want that to happen, I'll do a Twitter poll, and I can tell you I have extreme pull in the Twitter poll because I am our only follower right now. Go ahead and follow the Pretty Neat podcast if you have a chance.
Yeah. Follow the Pretty Neat podcast on Twitter.
We won't annoy you with dumb shit. We'll just post them
episodes. Also buy our merch. So some people think Dominic Reyes won that fight. He didn't. Some people think Thiago Santos won that fight. He didn't. Okay, fine. You know what? We'll delve into that at a later date when it's been a couple of dry UFC weeks. Maybe we'll do a live rewatch. Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
What we really saw, though, was how fucking good you have to be a title contender in the UFC.
Yeah, we talked about that 50-mile-high gatekeeping. Last time.
And if there's exactly. And if there's really one division, one high-profile division anyway, where that's not the case, it's light heavyweight, except for what Jan did to Stylebender. But that's kind of a different thing because Stylebender,
he was really up.
Yeah, and he struggled to move up, right? A lot of guys move up and they just don't cut weight, and Stylebender really struggled. No shade at Stylebender, but there was a point where people thought he could beat John Jones. Like, what's he gonna do? Look what Jan did to him. John Jones is a different beast. Yeah. So Jiri goes out and, man, I think I texted you something like Reyes is getting outclassed, but then Reyes ended up kind of turning it around a little bit, or at least it looked like he was. And that's really what I'm talking about when I say how good you have to be. Is Dominic Reyes is the very best fighter in essentially every building and every place he ever goes, except for like once or twice every 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy if you think about it.
Yeah.
But Jiri just had
dismantled every single thing.
He not only did he completely sort of shut down everything Reyes wanted to do, he seemed to have an unlimited bag of tricks that he was going to. I think I saw multiple flying knees that one of them landed okay, the other one didn't, and then he hits him with that crazy you don't have to be an MMA fan to see that spinning elbow. And Jiri, I think, is a guy who's
a nightmare.
You figure out, I guess, Glover Teixeira is next up for Jan, but then you put Jiri and Jan in there, and you might have, Dana, and I want to talk about your Endeavor stock. Dana and you, I guess, might have a decent 2 or 3 fights coming up in that division, and I mean, talk about a hell of a co-main event for, say, Francis and John Jones. And obviously they're going to headline, but you put those two, because Jan is a tough motherfucker. You put those two below them as the co-main, and then you try to stack Amanda Nunes, and you find someone who's willing to fight her. I mean, you've got something here in a division that was maybe looking a little thin. What do you think?
No, I'm on the same page as you. He threw it's so weird because I want to say he threw anything, and he threw everything. He threw anything and everything from everywhere at any time, and it was so unpredictable and kind of scary. And there was no combo. You can prepare to block certain combos. You can do that, and that
Yeah.
seemed like it would have been impossible. It was, what part of his body is dipping right now so that he can torque which part to throw at me, and can I compute that fast enough to try and block that area. And you could tell that everything was just starting to get through, because Dominic was bloodied up and he was beating the shit, even though if there's a hole in Yuri's game, it's just his defense. He got clipped a few times, and the wrong guy in that division is going to end you with that. And I mean,
Jan is that guy.
Yeah, Jan does that, and Glover does that too. So it could be really interesting for what could happen there. In a different time, Dominic, Yuri would be next in line for John Jones. So I'm kind of curious as to how he would have done with the John Jones that beat Dominic and beat Thiago
Santos.
Yeah.
So there's something to what you're saying, and another guy who kind of just throws anything at any time is John Jones. Now, throwing anything at any time against Dominic Reyes is one thing, and throwing anything at any time against John Jones typically is going to result in traumatic brain injury. So, or a dislocated hip, or your knees are going to get fucked up, or whatever is going to happen. And so, I think we all know how he does against John Jones. I think if John thought that there was anyone interesting in that division, remember, there was a time where people thought Johnny Walker could beat John Jones, which is laughable at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That's why John's moving up and looks at a whatever type of human Francis Ngannou is and says, I'll do that.
Yeah. He's a monster. I just got to say, Yuri lit up my life on Saturday. I felt that elbow, and geez, I'm really excited to see what happens with him. He is pretty fucking neat, and I for damn sure respect that man's distance. That's a wild mountain beast. If I was gonna meet Yuri, I would bring a gun. I'd pack some heat, because he's a dangerous fellow. He's a dangerous fellow.
Yeah, carry a gun. You got to pack a heat. Yeah, pack some heat.
Pack it.
And, yeah,
he's scary.
I was very, very impressed with his mix of speed and precision. We say in MMA, I'm fucking there. In MMA, they say slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? That's kind of like a CrossFit, UFC fit gym saying, but it turns out that fast is fast and fast is power, because
momentum exists.
Momentum exists, and that was the hell
because physics.
Was it Herb Dean?
No. Geez, I don't remember. The fights were too good.
I believe that it was Herb Dean.
Yeah. That's funny you'd say Herb Dean too, and you mentioned him earlier, and this is very quick. And this is another thing for anybody new listening to the podcast. Some fans see Herb Dean in the octagon and go, this is going to be a good one. We're not those fans. We're not those fans, but we do say Herb Dean is one of the best of the best. So we're in for at least a smoother fight. But I definitely know some folks at the bar that will go and I'll meet with and be like, oh man, I love Herb Dean. This is going to be a good one. And I
do love Herb Dean. And people think the fights, if I understand where you're going with that, people think the fights that he does are going to be good because he always gets the big draws. But, he got there before Yuri could throw 11 hammer fists on him, and he did not get there with Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal. So,
yeah,
good on Herb for getting there and getting the stop.
Poor Cub.
So is he done?
I don't think so. I think no, he won his last one before this, and it was a knockout. I think he's got another couple. I do. And man,
okay.
I would never, ever, ever, ever want to take a kick like that. Ever.
No, it's not good.
Have you experienced it?
No.
You're
Of
just
course
rolling,
not.
right? You're just doing jiu-jitsu, right? You're not doing MMA complete, or
No,
what
I do Muay Thai as well.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Cub Swanson, I don't know. He actually he was on a 2-fight winning streak. He beat Kron Gracie. But a 4-fight losing streak before that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Cub Swanson is one of those guys that killer leg tattoos, but
He reminds me of Jim Miller and Cerrone. I just think he's gonna stick around. I think he's just gonna keep fighting, and then until somebody really says don't anymore.
he probably will.
I'm all for it. I like Cub. He's a nice guy. What did you think about the split draw? Ian Kutalaba. Did you watch that fight? I know
I don't
that you
have
had
an
a
opinion
busy
on that fight.
I know you had a busy weekend and you were in and out in some of them, but
Break
Ian
it down for me.
He is so aggressive. He is insane. You might remember he I think it was Islam. No, it was Magomed. No, who the hell did he fight?
Magomed Sharadov?
Yeah, he feigned injury, and the ref interpreted as real injury, and then he was like, "No, I wasn't. Why'd you stop it? I was pretending to lure him in, etc." And it seemed pretty legit. Not like how injuries should be faked, as some others might be able to teach a dive here or there, as we might talk about today. But yeah, he's really, really fun to watch, but he reminds me of early Dennis Bermudez. He just wants to, and now I'm not even going to quote Dennis Bermudez, but I'm going to say he just wants to bang, bro. Like,
yep.
And I really like that about him. And honestly, that draw, when that was coming up to the scorecards, I thought it might have been, man. It was a really, really good fight. But it was almost too much. It was almost like watching two ADH kids like fight over a toy.
Do you think that an MMA fight should end in a draw ever?
I don't know if I have an opinion on that.
All right. It's more philosophical than maybe you were expecting, but the issue was that a 3 or 5 round fight?
It was 3.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can't have a draw. They can't each win a round and a half. I guess if you could say they each took 1 round and the other was a draw, but I don't know. I take issue with it. I take more issue with a draw in boxing.
Yeah.
Where you have a 12-round fight, and I don't know, just hypothetically say December 2018, Tyson Fury wins 10 to 12 rounds against Deontay Wilder, but they call it a draw anyway. Yeah, okay, he won 2 rounds. Yeah, maybe he even won 3. You know what? Let's give him 4.
Yeah.
What about the other 8?
No, I think draws. I think the way it kind of came out, I think that, and I mean, there was also TJ Brown in this card, had some pretty bad fence grabs and kind of had a stolen fight as well. He kind of, I watched that fight. I was shocked that he won, kind of just like every single MMA reporting outlet, every single one had scored it the other way. And so it was pretty shocking. But like in that instance, maybe if he was winning the fight and was grabbing the fence, and those were fight changing fence grabs, in my opinion, he was getting taken down and he prevented it from happening, and that could have changed the outcome of the fight. And if losing points could have led to a draw, like if he was winning and then he lost points because he cheated and it was a draw, that makes sense to me. That makes sense.
Sure. Sure.
But man, that was a crazy one.
So cage grabs and UFC, they've done a better job, but they definitely had, and don't like fact check me on this. They have different rules in different states at different times, right? That's why they don't fight all over the place. It's typically California, Nevada, Texas, Florida, I guess New York, right? You're not going to find them in anymore anyway. They're not going to be in Des Moines, Iowa, or Idaho, wherever Des Moines is.
Yeah.
And that's because different state athletic commissions have different rules. Remember, obviously, John Jones, the one loss on his record is from a situation like that. Over in ONE FC, you're allowed to knee a down fighter. I am so torn on the cage grab rules. And now most of the time the referee will sort of redirect them from doing it. If you're allowed to slam your opponent into the cage, shouldn't they be allowed to grab the cage?
I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, I wonder if it's a safety thing or not. Like, I really do.
Yeah, so it could
I don't
be
have an answer
because
for you.
it could be. So in jiu-jitsu, you want to do what's called a Gable Grip, which for everyone who's listening looks like this. It's you don't interlock your fingers.
Thank
You
you.
sort of put
Thank
your
you,
palms
Dom.
together and twist them, and then cup your hands within your hands. You're
Mhm.
kind of making like a 90-degree angle with your hands. Your two palms are touching, but your fingers are on either side. Like one of them is below your thumb, one of them is below your pinky finger. And that's because if you interlock your fingers, you will probably break most of them because your opponent will pull against that. You are so tense and locked in. They're
Mhm.
going to snap. And so any halfway decent jiu-jitsu coach, and I'm lucky enough to have a couple of very good ones, will immediately correct that when they see you do it.
Yeah.
You could make the same argument about a cage grab that you could really, really mess up your fingers. But here's the thing. These guys take off all their clothes, put on tiny gloves, and get into a locked steel cage and literally fight.
Yeah.
So are we splitting hairs? I don't, for safety, I don't know.
We might be. I mean, it's better than their like original fucking UFC idea of having like electric fences for a while. And at one point, I think there was even a design for a moat. Like, so I think that the cage is an exception. I think that I'm kind of interested in how it would look, even though I think it'd probably be terrible of doing like plexiglass walls. But I mean, they'd get smudged and sweaty and disgusting, and fuzzy ass, sweaty back hair all over that shit, and smudging blood and everywhere. It'd probably be pretty gross.
Yeah, they don't need it for TV, right? It could impact the spectator experience, but baseball stadiums put up those nets a few years ago when that little kid got smashed by that foul ball. The foul ball nets that run all the way down the foul line. So that, there's ways around it. We're probably already making too big of a deal out of this because it mostly isn't an issue, but
it works at medieval times. So let's just give it the medieval times treatment. Maybe not
a medieval times reference.
And you know what? If you put him in an arena like that, I'd be all for that. I'd be all for that.
That's
I think that'd be pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah. The rest of this card was so good, and it was really, really fun. Marab looked amazing. He's gonna be terrifying for everyone. I mentioned the dive earlier. Marcos got fucked. Did you watch that whole thing?
I saw the highlight. I didn't see the fight.
I watched the fight, and the kind of the hard part is arguably Luana was winning the fight already, and Marcos was coming back a little bit and kind of got her chance robbed. But the thing for me is when that up kick hit, it kind of was that little shock of it looked like, oh crap, an up kick. You'd expect it to be terrible, and it would have murdered me. I'm not saying anything to the
of course
at all. But my thing is that like she looked like she realized what happened. Like her momentum shifted. She was turning back towards the fight and saw Marcos holding her hand up, apologizing, and then kind of fell back. Like it will be a highlight reel. It'll be on the highlight reel of dive. So it'll be on the dive light reel. That someday it will, because it was bad diving. And she got carried off, and like her eyes were rolling around. It was just like it did not look as bad as they made it out to be.
Did you feel the same way about Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan?
No, I didn't. It was a different situation, and that knee hits at a different spot. Although I also think knees to a down opponent should be allowed. Mighty Mouse Johnson lost in one a week after Aljo won in the UFC. Correct. For the same thing. Like I think it should be allowed. But yeah, it was very sad, and there's really nothing you can do about it. It just kind of sucks. I wonder what will come of it, and what kind of reputations will be tarnished. But
So I'm rewatching this kick now. I don't know.
yeah, I had to
I
say
don't
my
know.
part. And for me, it's not. I'm not trying to get anybody on my side. I'm just.
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
really. I never.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing.
Uh-huh.
I
For anybody, I'm just saying, it looks like a dive to me.
when you say dive, you mean she's flopping. She's
100%.
faking.
She is
Um,
maybe tired, maybe out of it from the whole fight and everything going on. But still, that kick is not the reason. That was not. It just wasn't.
I don't know, man. Let me kick you in the face like that and see how you do.
Oh, I would be knocked out cold. But
It's just
I'm
hard.
not an
It's
MMA
just
fighter.
hard. And that's where I would really and I know, and I'm obviously teasing. I will defer to the medical staff and the referees on site who I believe know the situation in the cage better than I do. And frankly, if they don't know the situation in the cage better than I do, then they should not be allowed to do this sport. So that's what I'll say about a situation like this. The Peter Yan Aljamain Sterling one was a lot more egregious.
Yeah.
Peter, there was that weird side note that I think it was Khabib who told Daniel Cormier, oh, Jan's corner was yelling at him to kick him or not to kick him or something. I mean, Peter Yan is someone who's defended the title at least once, if not twice.
Yeah, but the ref warned him. He's down. He said he's down.
The ref warned him. You can't.
No.
You can't look past that.
You can't be told the rule 5 seconds before breaking it and expect to get away with it. And I mean, if what's funny is it was the same ref in both fights. By the way, I forget his name. Steve, I think is his, but I don't remember his last name. And I'm probably way off. But
his name is Mark Smith.
Oh, thank you. It's Mark Smith.
Yeah, Steve, Mark, whatever.
And I'm thinking Stephen A. Smith. That's why. Yeah.
Sure. Different guy.
Yeah, totally. But if he was warning Randa first, watch those up kicks, and then it hits her in the head. Hey, he warned you about the rule. You hit her in the head and you broke the rule. Like, then it's a DQ, no problem. In this instance, it was clearly accidental, and there was no warning in advance, as far as I remember. And to me, it looked like she was way overselling that. That's like Josh Koscheck pretending to be kicked in the balls, like level of bad acting. So that's it. I just want to say my piece on that, and I wish her the best, but luckily she's in a sport where, and I'm referring to our victor in this case, Pinheiro, we're in a sport where the reward for being a participant is getting punched in the face. So congratulations on your win. Now you're going to fight somebody who's going to hit you harder. Anyway, yeah, that was a good one. I'm a big Look Boon Me fan, Loma Look Boon Me. I've watched her for a while. I think she was in Invicta for a bit, and she's good. She was a little bit less aggressive than normal. She's kind of a pit bull, and I was telling my wife about her, and she was kind of let me down a tiny bit in that regard. But yeah, it was fun night of fights. PFL was good.
Night of fights.
PFL, Rory looks like a monster. Oh my gosh.
Tell me about him.
Oh, it was perfect. Things aren't working as well on the feet as I planned. I'm going to go to the ground and finish it there. And he did. I mean, it was just watching. It was almost like watching a master teach a student. He was teaching a class, and it was onward to the next. It was beautiful.
Love that.
And I also, Ray Cooper III, followed him last year through PFL. Another one, just a steamroller. Fun to watch. And this weekend, or not this weekend, this week, Thursday, Fabricio Verdum is the main event against Renan Ferreira.
Yeah.
And that'll be a good fight. I'm excited to see Verdum back. He's always fun. I always want to see him go to the ground. There's something weird about watching the big dudes go to the ground because they're such knockout artists. But watching a Frank Mir or a Nogueira brother is always fun with the big boys.
Yeah, and as someone who has been on the ground with a number of very big men, it's terrifying. Terrifying. We've got Michael Venom Page coming up against Derek Anderson. You have any thoughts on that?
I'll always watch MVP.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. He's always exciting. I'd even watch him
That's
get
a
knocked out.
Bellator 258.
Yeah. Is that this coming weekend?
Yeah, May 7th.
Really? So we got Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night fights again. Jeez.
Yeah, and you know what else is on Saturday? Canelo Alvarez, Billy Joe Saunders.
That's right. Well, you'll probably be watching that.
I will be watching that. Who do you have?
I know my resources. Who do you have?
Yeah. Canelo.
I think Canelo's got this one in the bag, Dom.
I'm gonna this is my boxing detour for the week. Canelo Alvarez is so incredibly skilled. And he's so skilled, it's almost weirdly not fun to watch him fight because there's no one close. Now, Billy Joe Saunders is the guy that a lot of people have been saying for a while could have what I suppose you could call is the best chance to beat Canelo. I don't see it. Vegas doesn't see it. I think Canelo's a minus 700 favorite, but what I like about this Canelo fight, and I don't know how many more of these we're going to get, and unfortunately it didn't work here, is DAZN, DAZN. Horrible name. You could have just called it DAZN and never actually told people what it stands for. I think that might have been okay, right? How many people know what ESPN stands for being honest? You just know it as a network. So DAZN, right?
Uh-huh.
I think you pay $20 a month for it, and you get all of their events, including the big Canelo fight, which is pretty cool. And there was a stretch in December where they had Anthony Joshua, Canelo, and Gennady Golovkin, Triple G, on 3 separate days. I want to say in 2 weeks. I think Triple G fought on the Friday and Canelo fought the Saturday, and Anthony Joshua fought the week before.
I was a subscriber at that time. That was a very momentous time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the UFC, I mean, here's the thing. They don't do this because they must make enough money at the pay-per-views. But if you told me I would even say $29.99 per month, I already get the fight nights, but I get all of their content, including these pay-per-view fights. I sign up for it right now. You would think they're missing an opportunity, but
is that your price point?
No, they're not.
I'm curious what your price point would be on a monthly where it includes the pay-per-views for UFC.
So you typically get one big pay-per-view a month. I think I would pay $30.
Yeah.
What would you pay?
I probably would too. 30 is a pretty good price point for everything we've got now, plus the pay-per-views. Yeah, that's pretty fair.
And I think you could convince me to pay the $30 up front, so you don't have to worry about me canceling, or the 30 for the year up front. Excuse me. So what, $360 in January 1st, and then I get all the events for the year. That'd and they don't have to worry about billing me every month and maybe me canceling or whatever it may be. I would sign up for it.
Yep, I would too. Well, we've solved that. UFC, give us a ring. We are available at
Dana. That's a free one for you at gmail.com. Yeah. Dana, that's a free one for you.
Yeah, and as we're figuring out all the pretty neat things that we can do on this podcast.
That's right.
And thanks again for anybody listening. And we're playing with things and figuring stuff out, and you're part of that. That's freaking cool. And like the dozen or so subscribers. So if you take out all of the accounts that are mine, that's the 2 subscribers.
Both of them.
No, I'd say we've got about 9. And I think that it's appropriate that anybody who's listening right now, you are in the first. You are part of the fellowship. I'll say the fellowship of neatness. And nobody else will ever claim that. If you're an early adopter of having us as your MMA friends, that's awesome. And welcome. And I hope you enjoy little spicy things that we do in the future, for sure. Dom,
that's right.
Dom, next week, also UFC, we've got Watterson. I want to touch on that before
Michelle?
The Karate Hottie.
The Karate Hottie, best nickname for sure.
Do you think it is the best nickname? Really?
You know what? I said that not really like ready to defend it.
That's fair.
Um,
I've got a thing for the nickname for Matt, the steamroller frivola myself. I think that's delicious.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
We'll do a list. We'll run down someday. We'll look at a bunch.
Yeah, we'll have to run through an MMA nicknames.
And I want you to
power
give me. I
rankings.
want you to give me an MMA nickname, and I will give you an MMA nickname. And I'm going to take it seriously. I'm going to pretend you've been training.
So I was given a nickname at jiu-jitsu, and
Okay, then never mind. I want to know what it is.
No. Well, here's the thing. I don't like it, and so I'm not going to be called it. 12 gauge is pretty good off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple of other. We actually have one other thing we've got to talk to you about this coming weekend for the fights. Aside from our main event, because the co-main event kind of is what took the headlines, is with this Diego Sanchez stuff, because Diego Sanchez was fired from the UFC, and because his brainwashed by an undiagnosed paranoid schizophrenic narcissist. And I do have enough experience to say that.
Okay.
And I do think that that's true, and I do think Diego needs help, and that is a terrible situation. And a lot of people have said that, who are important enough to be heard, and that are hopefully actually going to take it kind of seriously, because this Josh guy is listening to his rants is listening to a schizophrenic rant. And I mean, I've simply heard them before. And somebody who's also very charismatic and convincing, like this guy probably is, found a guy in Diego who he could use for whatever intention he has, which to me is just to better his own platform. And if you say on a video, I'm not going to post this on the internet, and then post it on the internet, that's the equivalent of you're getting your BMF belt removed. You know what I mean?
Or, I don't mean to be racist, but
yeah, it's the same thing. Like, it was just kind of, it just sucks. But so Donald Cerrone's still going to fight, and now he's going to fight Alex Morono. And this kind of might have come out of the left field, but Cerrone's a journeyman and a gatekeeper, and Morono is kind of that perfect spot of that fighter who's in the middle, really could use a massive popularity boost. And if he beats Donald Cerrone, he could get that. And I actually do think he has a chance. I think he might get compared to Alex Hernandez a little bit, in that he might rush him a little bit. And kind of be the too young of a gun, but Alex Morono's got a level head. I watched him fight a couple of times in person, not just in the UFC, but in general, and he goes to work. He definitely is going to work, and he's gonna throw down with Cerrone. I actually think that this might, not that this would be a better fight, but I think that this will be more interesting than the last one, than Cerrone versus Sanchez. So I'm kind of excited. I'm pretty excited about it, actually.
And Cowboy's never boring.
No, he's not. He's not. And Diego's never boring. So it's not like I would have expected to be boring, but we know Diego's going to try and maul, and we know Cerrone's going to be intelligent. So I felt like we kind of knew how the fight was going to go, even though it was going to be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to just get another good one. I think that one's going to be fun. And then even before that, there's Neil Magny and Jeff Neal. And that is going to be another fun one. I don't know. That's going to be it. That depends on which one of each of them shows up, because both of them have this emotional thing, in my opinion, where it's just kind of which one shows up. You know what I mean?
So I actually love two things. I love any Jeff that's spelled Geoff, and I also love anybody with two first names. So
I'm glad that Neil Magny's last name is not impronounceable like Young Jake Check is, because then they might have decided to go with Neil versus Neil.
What if Neil Magny's last name was Jeff? You know what? You ever think of something funny to say and you laugh to yourself before you say it, and you know no one else is gonna laugh at this. Neil Jeff and Jeff Neal are gonna fight on a UFC Fight Night on a Saturday night on ESPN Plus. That's like saying, what is it? Is it Abraham Lincoln had a assistant or an aide whose name was Kennedy, and Kennedy had one whose name was Lincoln, and people say that and they expect you to give them a fucking award, and you're like, all right, that isn't anything. Like, listen, I don't walk up to you and say, hey, we never landed on the moon, and then like expect you to give me a high five. I don't remember anymore. Do you know when Cowboy's last win was?
When was Cowboy's last win? I mean, his last fight was McGregor, yeah?
I believe so. It was 2 years ago, actually, May 2019, UFC Ottawa. And who did he beat?
Tell me. Refresh.
Al Iaquinta.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, Al is another underrated guy I'd love to talk about more. Another time. We've got all the time in the world. We've got every Monday to chat and every Tuesday or Wednesday to share it with the world instead of just you and I knowing it.
We've got to share it instead of just us knowing it.
Yep. There's a couple of other great fights on this one. I'm glad Gregor Gillespie's coming back since his knockout from Kevin Lee.
Yes.
I love watching Gillespie fight. He's another one of those guys who just seems so down to earth, and it's just he's an athlete through and through.
Do you think he's coming back too soon?
No, that was 2019. He's good. That was a while. It's been over a year. I think he's fine. Not particularly concerned with ring rust. He had that other camp. His last fight fell out. I think it might have even been this one. It just rescheduled, but I think it was. So I think I'm excited to see him back. I think he's going to win this one myself. I think that Angela Overkill Hill, one of my favorite other names to say, is going to win. I think she's going to get another one against Kibas. But man, it's just going to be another whole weekend of fights. There's going to be so much that it's going to be an overwhelming amount of need.
An overwhelming amount of need, indeed.
Yeah, man. Dustin.
Gillespie. Oh, Diego Ferreira. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maurice Green, Jeff Neal, and Neil Magny.
Yeah, I love Maurice Green as well.
That's gonna be a good night of fights to go along with Canelo. Prelims start at 2 Pacific anyway. I love early fight start times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything? Oh, Ben Rothwell's fighting. I like Ben Rothwell.
And this is the kind of fans we are. You know, there's some podcasts that are like super sports analytical, and they're like, you know, they're kind of not though.
Okay.
They're us if we thought we knew stuff and we like bragged about knowing stuff.
That is only analysis you get on the Pretty Neat podcast. They're kind of analytical, but they're kind of not though. You can't beat it, folks. And to think this is free. It's free to listen. Ben Rothwell is one of those guys that a lot of people see and they're like, oh, well, I could beat him up because he looks like he's fat.
Nope.
And it's like, no, you could.
He's a beast.
No, you could.
He's a beast. He had a geez, I have to look now because he had a fight recently where he came back really late and it was really quite fun. I think it may have been Stefan Struve. Yeah, it was actually. He didn't come back though. I just remember him. It was
Well, anytime 2 heavyweights like that get in the ring or the cage rather, or a ring, there's the possibility of just an absolute flatline knockout. So you gotta love it. Aaron, would you like to give out this week's I Think You're Pretty Neat, but I respect
for this week
award?
I think I think you're pretty neat, but I respect your distance award goes to Jiri Prochazka. What a beautiful elbow. I love Dominic Reyes, and it's pretty rare that I'll root for somebody after they beat somebody that I really like to watch. And not that I'm like, you beat my guy, but that's exactly how I am. He was exciting in his last fight as well. And geez, I mean, he's only 2 fights in and he's probably gonna be fighting for a belt. It reminds me of like super young John Jones. I mean, he had Ultimate Fighter, but he only had a couple of fights and he was up there for the belt. I think Yuri will be up there for the belt very quick. And probably KO of the year contender. He walked away with 2 fight of the night bonuses. Man, I think he's pretty neat, but I respect his distance. How about you?
I think Yuri Prochazka is pretty neat. I'm going to leave you on this sentiment. Motivate me more. Motivate me more.
Dom, I should not have to motivate you. If it is not in you already, then you have already lost. I know my motivation.
Thank you for listening to the Pretty Neat Podcast.
Fun things. Hope you all like listening to the Pretty Neat Podcast. We're now available on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public, and we're soon going to be available on a bunch of other platforms. So thanks for listening. Tell your friends. We look forward to seeing you. Bye.
I respect your distance. Wow. How neat is that? That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Shake things up a little bit. Get the earth moving. That's pretty neat. Not giving up yet. That's pretty neat. Gee, dang it. How neat is that? That's pretty neat.